What's up, my heroes? Let me be the first to finally introduce you to the first ever video on the My Hero Collects channel. This is a channel that actually spun out of my love and passion of all things geek. Here on this channel, you're gonna find my thoughts on collection items across video games, comics, movies, etc. If that sounds like something that interests you, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date as my videos come out. If it doesn't, well, you can kiss my ass. To kick us off, I'm really excited, man, to talk about this first item as it hits a sweet spot for me and my love of all things horror. This item comes from a really well-known horror movie, and while I thought part 1 was absolutely amazing and really enjoyed part 2, I can see some people's gripes with it. Despite that, there was a whole lot to love about the movie, and the same can be said about this figure. This thing is legit badass, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop babbling, and let's kick off this cinematic right after this Thanos snap. Alright guys, as you can see, I've got with me here today the 1/5 scale Pennywise maquette from Tweeterhead. This figure came in a pretty cool box with both the front and the back of the box including a picture of the Pennywise figure. The back of the box is probably a little bit cooler in my opinion by also including a picture of the concept sketch that the director of the new films did that this figure is actually based on. If I look at the dimensions of Pennywise himself, base included, he's about 15 inches tall if you use his balloon attachment. With his standard pinching finger swap out, he's gonna be at about roughly 12 inches give or take. Moving over to the Richie doll, he's about 7 inches in length and roughly 3.5 inches in width at his widest part. I would say the biggest hurdle with this Pennywise figure is definitely the weight. Together with his biggest swap outs, he comes in at under 12 pounds. And while not the biggest issue or concern, I would say for me personally having detail shelves, I would not put him at the top. All right, so now I want to jump into a topic that I'm actually really excited about when it comes to this figure, and that's going to be sculpt and paint. And the first thing that I want to talk about specifically is this Richie doll, because man, this thing is completely badass, and I think that Tweeterhead totally knocked it out of the park. I think Tweeterhead did an amazing job of creating what truly looks like a doll version of Richie from the film. I especially like the little details with the wooden joints at the elbows and the knees, and I think those little details really just drive home the fact that this is a doll aesthetic. I think the wildest thing with this figure is the details on the face, specifically talking about the stitching across the lips. I think that in combination with the discolored eyes and just the expression of the doll itself just makes this thing totally haunting. I will say that I'm not 100% sure what the stuff on the face is supposed to be. I don't know if that's supposed to be mold or gore or what. Unfortunately, it's a little too small, so it's indistinguishable to me. Overall though, this Richie figure is a personal highlight when it comes to this set. Focusing on the base, the overall look is good enough to serve its purpose without being too distracting. A lot of times what I've seen in other reviews of figures or collectibles is the base is either so bland that it's pretty much pointless, or it's got so much going on that it just becomes a hassle to even deal with. I think the greatest part of the base is the fact that they were able to create something that is functional in terms of securing Pennywise himself, but also recreating a scene from the movie one-to-one. I think one of the really cool things that Tweeterhead did was a small attention to detail when it comes to the base / casket. This may not actually show on video very well, but looking at it in person, this brown casket actually has a little bit of a gray color to it. I think that gray gives a really awesome weathered look to the actual casket, gives this sense that this casket and these souls that Pennywise have collected are not new. Speaking of attention to detail though, I have to give my hats off to the actual lid of the base itself. Man, Tweeterhead, you guys have killed it when it comes to the sculpting and the paint that went into the actual lid. This thing straight up looks like textured cloth stitching. And that dried, bloody, found text that runs across the lid, it just puts a bow on a beautiful, bloody mess of a package. I would say my only gripe is that all that attention to detail is hidden at the bottom due to Pennywise keying into the lid itself. It wouldn't be too much of a deal if Pennywise could stand or he could sit on the side of the casket, and therefore you could position the lid to be on display. But again, back on my prior comment with Pennywise not being as stable or secure, it's not something I would recommend, nor am I going to do. And so it's just sinful that all that detail at the lid is just lost to the fact that it's hidden underneath Pennywise.
Lol.
All right, so saving the best for last and focusing on the clown himself, I would say that I'm overall very satisfied with the actual painting and the sculpt that went into it. All of the little finer details that have been on all the other pieces of this figure that I've talked about are here with Pennywise himself. Small details such as little balls on his shoes, the big poofy sleeves, or even the little ribbons across various parts of his body. The main body sits at one gray color for the most part, though there's some shading that helps break up the figure so it's not all just bleeding together. The crown jewel of the body is definitely in the head, and thankfully they did a killer job of capturing the look and feel of Pennywise from the film. I think the sculpt did a really good job of capturing the look of Pennywise, not only with just in the face paint, but then the small details such as this really protruding large forehead that he has in the movies that's got this cracked and weathered kind of look to it. I think the really cool thing when it comes to this face is that they were actually able to capture little mannerisms of Pennywise from the film. If you look closely, he's even got that same kind of protruding bottom lip with that drool that's running down. And they even captured that creepy side eye thing that he was able to do where one's way off to the side and the other one looks like it's piercing right through your soul. Of course, you can't have Pennywise without his balloon, and there's really not much to be said about it. It's a red balloon and it's cool. So I was actually able to grab the exclusive version from Tweeterhead directly, and that came with a few extra items. And I'm gonna be honest, before those things even came in, one of the ones that I thought was gonna kind of just be a set aside piece was this octopus leg thing. I don't even remember where this was in the movie, and it looked okay in the pictures, but I just thought it was just dumb looking, to be honest. But man, I have to admit that once I actually got this package and I was able to hold that piece in my hand, I think this octopus leg piece is probably the coolest thing right behind the Richie doll for me. What really does it for me though with this piece is the paint. This thing just looks wet and slippery. It's just got this look to it where it looks like it just came out of some dark, murky water and brushed up against you, and it makes your skin want to crawl. So I would say that one of the most disappointing things for me when it comes to this whole package is the actual wolf hand swap out. I was actually pretty excited to see what this would look like in person. And I mean, yeah, it's fine, but I can't help but feel that I'm a little disappointed by it. Compared to the regular hand swap out, it's just a slightly bigger hand with longer fingers. The ripping on the glove does give it a pretty cool look, but yeah, it's just not as impressive as the other pieces that I've talked about. The pinching finger is completely harmless and is there if you want to recreate that scene from the movie. I think it's great, but I think that the balloon hand is cooler. The last item to talk about is a red envelope that came with the package. That red envelope includes a picture of the actual concept art that I was talking about that's autographed from the director of the It films itself. I think it's cool, and I'm actually going to include it whenever I display this out with the figure, just to kind of give that full Pennywise fangirl look. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about in this video is value. And I'll be honest and say this is probably one of the trickiest things for me to tackle because value is such a subjective term. So while I can't personally say that you would find the $349 price tag worth it, I would say for me personally, when I look at the level of craftsmanship and the quality that comes in this package, to me, I think it's worth it. For that price, you're getting a number of switch outs and even more if you were able to grab the limited edition version from Tweeterhead. I think all those swap outs are beneficial because it helps keep the figure from just getting stale as time goes on by changing up the look to keep it fresh. I also think for those true hardcore horror movie buffs, that concept sketch and that signature from the director is an absolute must. Using my 100% patented and clearly thought out rating system of spook or rebuke, man, I'm gonna go ahead and give this thing a spook. I think anybody would be happy to have this in their collection. And with Halloween right around the corner, this thing is gonna look 100% badass as a centerpiece. All right, heroes, I hope you enjoyed that very first video from the My Hero Collects line. As this is a passion project of mine that does not pay the bills, I will do my absolute best in making sure that I keep content rolling in, while also making sure these lights stay on and that lady of mine stays fed. Stay tuned, guys, as I hope to have a new video very soon. Something with a little bit of touch, a little bit of power, and a hell of a lot more retro. Until then, I'll see you heroes soon. All right, guys, so the last thing I want to talk about for today is blah, blah, blah.